I heard her laugh before I saw her. It was the kind of laugh that stings more than it should. She held up one of my old jackets, bright, bold, with shoulder pads and golden buttons. She said, "How could anyone wear this? It looks like something from a bad movie." She did not know. She did not know that jacket once stood under the spotlight, that I once stood next to people the world now worships. She saw old fabric. She did not see history. She did not see me. There is something strange about silence. It holds all the words we wish we could say. So I smiled. I stayed quiet, but something inside me started to rise. This is the story of what she never knew and what I almost forgot. Before we jump back in, tell us where you are tuning in from. And if this story touches your heart, please subscribe. Because tomorrow, I have saved something truly special just for you. My name is Margaret. I am 57 years old. I live in a small house at the edge of town. It is quiet here, peaceful. I have lived in this house for almost 20 years. The walls know my voice. The floors remember my footsteps. Each morning, I wake up early. I make a cup of tea. I look out the window at the garden, even when it rains. Sometimes I talk to the flowers. I know they do not answer. But still, it feels like they listen. I live alone, but I am not lonely. At least, that is what I tell myself. My daughter Emily is 25. She moved out 3 years ago. She lives in the city now, in a small but stylish apartment with white walls and modern chairs. She works in fashion. She is young, smart, and full of big ideas. She wears black boots, high ponytails, and lipstick the color of fire. Sometimes, I look at her and wonder, was I ever that bold? We talk often, but it is not always easy. Emily is busy. She has meetings, deadlines, photo shoots. She always sounds like she is walking somewhere when she calls. I can hear her heels on the pavement. But I understand. I remember being young. I remember chasing dreams. Most days I keep to myself. I read books. I take care of my roses. I sew. I cook. I go for walks when the sun is soft. I also keep a large wooden chest in my bedroom. It is old and heavy, with golden handles. Inside are pieces of my past. Clothes I once made, photos, letters, sketches. I do not open it often, but I know it is there, like a quiet part of me I no longer speak to. To most people, I am just a woman with a calm life and gentle hands. They do not ask about my past. They see what is in front of them, and nothing more. And maybe that is my fault. Maybe I let that part of me fade too far. Still, I am content. My days are slow, but they are mine. There is peace in small things, the smell of soup, the sound of birds, the way the wind moves through the curtains. Then one afternoon, everything began to shift. Emily was coming to visit. She had a few free days and wanted to stay with me for the weekend. I cleaned the house, made her favorite cookies, and fluffed up the pillows on the guest bed. When she arrived, she hugged me quickly. She smelled like perfume and city air. She smiled and said, "Hi, Mom." We sat at the table, drank tea, and talked about her work. She was excited. Her new fashion campaign had just launched. She showed me photos on her phone, tall models, sharp clothes. lights and makeup and motion. I smiled. I told her she was doing well. She looked proud. And I was proud too. Later that evening, she asked if she could borrow a sweater. It had become cold, and she had packed lightly. I told her to look in my closet. That was the moment everything changed. But I did not know it yet. She walked into my room and opened the closet door. A few minutes passed. Then I heard it. Her laughter. Not loud, not cruel, but enough to break something soft inside me. She came out holding an old jacket, bright red, gold buttons, shoulder pads, one of the designs I had created many years ago. She said, "Oh my God, Mom, this is wild. Did people actually wear things like this?" I smiled. She laughed again. She did not mean to hurt me, I know that. But something in her voice, something sharp, stayed with me. I did not say much. I just said, "That was a different time." She tossed the jacket back into the closet. She did not ask where it came from. She did not ask who wore it. She did not ask about me, and maybe that is what hurt the most. That night, as she slept in the guest room, I sat alone in the kitchen. The jacket still hung on the edge of the closet door. It looked tired, forgotten, like a part of me I had hidden for too long. I made myself a cup of tea. I stared at the steam, and I thought about a time when I was the one creating beauty, when I was the one walking with purpose, holding pins between my lips, cutting fabric like poetry. That part of my life felt far away now, like a dream I once had and then let go of. But as I sat in the quiet, one thought stayed with me. Maybe I had let too much go, and in that moment, I could feel something changing. My name is Margaret. I am 57 years old. I live in a small house at the edge of town. It is quiet here, peaceful. I have lived in this house for almost 20 years. The walls know my voice. The floors remember my footsteps. Each morning, I wake up early. I make a cup of tea. I look out the window at the garden, even when it rains. Sometimes I talk to the flowers. I know they do not answer, but still, it feels like they listen. I live alone, but I am not lonely. At least that is what I tell myself. My daughter Emily is 25. She moved out 3 years ago. She lives in the city now, in a small but stylish apartment with white walls and modern chairs. She works in fashion. She is young, smart, and full of big ideas. She wears black boots, high ponytails, and lipstick the color of fire. Sometimes, I look at her and wonder, was I ever that bold? We talk often, but it is not always easy. Emily is busy. She has meetings, deadlines, photo shoots. She always sounds like she is walking somewhere when she calls. I can hear her heels on the pavement, but I understand. I remember being young. I remember chasing dreams. Most days, I keep to myself. I read books. I take care of my roses. I sew. I cook. I go for walks when the sun is soft. I also keep a large wooden chest in my bedroom. It is old and heavy, with golden handles. Inside are pieces of my past, clothes I once made, photos, letters, sketches. I do not open it often, but I know it is there. Like a quiet part of me I no longer speak to. To most people, I am just a woman with a calm life and gentle hands. They do not ask about my past. They see what is in front of them, and nothing more. And maybe that is my fault. Maybe I let that part of me fade too far. Still, I am content. My days are slow, but they are mine. There is peace in small things. The smell of soup, the sound of birds, the way the wind moves through the curtains. Then one afternoon, everything began to shift. Emily was coming to visit. She had a few free days and wanted to stay with me for the weekend. I cleaned the house, made her favorite cookies, and fluffed up the pillows on the guest bed. When she arrived, she hugged me quickly. She smelled like perfume and city air. She smiled and said, "Hi, Mom." We sat at the table, drank tea, and talked about her work. She was excited. Her new fashion campaign had just launched. She showed me photos on her phone. Tall models, sharp, clothes, lights and makeup and motion. I smiled. I told her she was doing well. She looked proud, and I was proud too. Later that evening, she asked if she could borrow a sweater. It had become cold, and she had packed lightly. I told her to look in my closet. That was the moment everything changed, but I did not know it yet. She walked into my room and opened the closet door. A few minutes passed. Then I heard it. Her laughter, not loud, not cruel, but enough to break something soft inside me. She came out holding an old jacket, bright red, gold buttons, shoulder pads. One of the designs I had created many years ago. She said, "Oh my God, Mom, this is wild. Did people actually wear things like this?" I smiled. She laughed again. She did not mean to hurt me. I know that. But something in her voice, something sharp, stayed with me. I did not say much. I just said, "That was a different time." She tossed the jacket back into the closet. She did not ask where it came from. She did not ask who wore it. She did not ask about me, and maybe that is what hurt the most. That night, as she slept in the guest room, I sat alone in the kitchen. The jacket still hung on the edge of the closet door. It looked tired, forgotten. Like a part of me I had hidden for too long. I made myself a cup of tea. I stared at the steam. And I thought about a time when I was the one creating beauty. When I was the one walking with purpose, holding pins between my lips, cutting fabric like poetry. That part of my life felt far away now, like a dream I once had and then let go of. But as I sat in the quiet, one thought stayed with me. Maybe I had let too much go, and in that moment, I could feel something changing. The next morning, I woke up early. The house was still. Emily was still asleep, and the sun had not yet touched the curtains. I went to the kitchen and made tea. I held the warm cup in my hands and sat at the table. I looked around at the quiet room. Something did not feel right. I could not name it. It was not anger. It was not sadness. It was something in between. A quiet confusion. A strange heaviness in my chest. I kept thinking about what Emily had said. Donate those old clothes. They are kind of dated. Did people actually wear things like this? They were just words. Simple, harmless words. But they stayed with me. They followed me like shadows through the day. Was it foolish to hold on to those clothes? Was it silly to still care about the work I had done so long ago? I had been proud of it once. Now, I was not sure what I was supposed to feel. I walked into my bedroom and opened the wooden chest at the end of the bed. Inside were pieces of my life, Fabric samples, design sketches, Polaroid photos, old magazines. I picked up a sketch, a long coat with silver lining and a high collar. I remembered how it felt to draw it. The pencil had moved with purpose. I had known exactly what I wanted. Now I looked at it and thought, does this even matter anymore? I stood up and looked. In the mirror. I touched my face. New lines. Soft eyes. I whispered to my reflection, who am I now? I did not have an answer. Later, Emily and I went out for lunch. We sat at a cafe by the park. She looked bright and full of energy. She talked about her job, the models she worked with, the next campaign. I listened and smiled. But part of me was far away. She looked at me and said, "Mom, you always liked clothes. Why did you never do anything big with it?" I blinked. I opened my mouth, but no words came. I felt a wave of confusion rise up in me. Did she not know? Did she really not know? I looked at her, my daughter, my child, and realized something painful. She did not know who I used to be. She did not know what I had done, what I had created, what I had given up. And somehow, I had let that happen. I said softly, "I did, Emily. I did do something with it. A long time ago." She looked surprised. "Oh, I did not know that." I nodded. She picked up her phone. The moment passed, but inside me, something stayed broken open. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The memories would not stop coming. I saw the studio I once worked in, noisy, full of color and movement. I saw the faces of people I had once worked with. I remembered the sound of scissors cutting through silk, the smell of steam from the iron, the flash of cameras backstage, and I remembered walking away from it all when I had Emily. It had been my choice. But it was not an easy one. Now she did not even know it had existed, and I was not sure if I had done the right thing. I turned on my side and closed my eyes. But the confusion stayed. It stayed like a question with no answer. A part of me felt like a stranger in my own life, and all I could think was, I feel confused. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror, brushing my hair. I looked tired, not just from lack of sleep, but from the weight of something I could not name, something between the past and the present. Something between me and my daughter. Emily walked into the room. She leaned against the door and smiled. "Hey, Mom," she said. "Do you want to go into town today? There's a vintage shop I want to check out. Might be fun." Her voice was light. She was trying. I could feel it. I smiled back. "Yes, that sounds nice." As we drove into town, I looked at her. Her hands on the wheel, her eyes on the road. She looked confident. She looked strong. I wondered what she saw when she looked at me. Did she see a woman who once chased dreams? Or just a mother who stayed behind? We parked near the square and walked through the streets together. The air was crisp. Shops were full of scarves, candles, and handmade things. She pointed at a boutique window. Inside were jackets with bold colors and strong shapes. Styles I recognized. Styles that had come back into fashion. "That's the place," she said. We walked in. The smell of old fabric and new perfume filled the air. A tall woman greeted us with a nod. Emily walked ahead, touching hangers, lifting sleeves. She held up a coat. This is so cool. I love the structure. Very retro. I looked at the coat. I had made something almost identical, 35 years ago. I opened my mouth to say it, but stopped. I do not know why. Maybe I thought she would laugh again. Maybe I feared she would not believe me, or worse, that she would not care. But then she turned and said, "You always had a good eye for style, Mom. You probably would have been amazing at this." There was no joke in her voice, no laughter, just honesty. It caught me by surprise. I looked at her. "Thank you," I said softly. She shrugged, almost shy. "I mean it," she said. "Sometimes I wish I had asked you more about your past. I always thought you liked being at home." My heart stirred. I wanted to tell her everything, about the studio, the fashion shows, the people I met, the long nights, the hard choices. But I hesitated, because the truth was not simple. It was filled with pain, pride, and sacrifice. I looked at her and thought, I want to trust her. I want to open that door. Let her see who I really am, not just as a mother, but as a woman. As a person with dreams that did not vanish just because time passed. As we walked out of the shop, she looped her arm through mine. It was something she had not done since she was a teenager. That small gesture meant more to me than she could. No. We sat on a bench and shared a pastry. The wind played with our hair. I told her about a coat I had once designed for a famous actress. She looked at me with wide eyes. "Really? That is amazing." Her voice held something new. Respect. I smiled. My heart softened. Maybe she was ready to know more. Maybe I could trust her with my truth. But trust, I have learned, is not a door you throw open. It is a window you unlock slowly, with shaking hands. Still, I want to trust her. The day after our trip to the vintage shop, I was in the garden trimming back the roses. The sun was warm on my shoulders. I had always loved the quiet of working with plants, the way life could grow again, even after being cut back. My phone rang. I wiped my hands on my apron and answered. It was Claire, my oldest friend. We had known each other since I was 19. We had designed together, dreamed together, and grown older together. "Hey, stranger," she said. Her voice was cheerful, but I could hear something underneath. We talked for a while. I told her Emily was visiting. I told her we had been reconnecting, talking more. She paused. Then she said, "Margaret, be careful." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She sighed. "I am glad you are getting along again. But sometimes, when people forget where we came from, they stop seeing who we are." I stayed quiet. Claire continued. "You gave up a lot, remember? You gave it up for your daughter. That was beautiful. But do not let her make you feel small, because she never saw who you used to be." I swallowed hard. "She is a good person," I said quietly. "I know," Claire replied. "But even good people can be careless with the hearts of those who raise them." That sentence stayed with me long after the call ended. I sat on the garden bench, listening to the wind in the trees. I looked down at my hands again, the same hands that had sewn silk, held my baby, and now trimmed roses. Was I being too sensitive? Was I holding on to old wounds, or was Claire right? Later that evening, Emily came into the living room with her laptop. "Mom," she said, "can I show you something?" She pulled up some photos from her company's upcoming fashion campaign. Bright colors, wild shapes, futuristic shoes. "What do you think?" she asked. I looked carefully. Some of it was exciting. Some of it felt rushed. I gave her a few soft comments, hoping to be honest, but kind. She laughed. "You always have such old-school opinions." There it was again, the tone, the soft dismissal. I smiled, but it felt stiff. She did not mean to hurt me. But still, it hurt. I thought about Claire's words again. Do not let her make you feel small because she never saw who you used to be. I stayed quiet. But inside me, a whisper had begun to grow louder, a voice I had pushed down for too many years. It said, "You were someone before this. You mattered." That night, I pulled out an old binder from the attic. Inside were letters, thank you notes from clients, printouts from magazines, show invitations with my name on them. I sat cross-legged on the floor, reading them under a small lamp. Every word reminded me I had lived a different life once, and, though I had folded it up and packed it away, that life had never stopped belonging to me. I was proud of the mother I became, but I missed the woman I had been. And Claire's words echoed once more. "Be careful. I hear a warning." The next morning, I woke up early. The house was still. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table. Outside the window, the sky was soft and gray. A light drizzle touched the glass. The kind of rain that makes you remember things. Claire's words were still with me. Do not let her make you feel small. Be careful. I stirred my tea slowly and told myself, it is not that serious. She is young. She does not mean harm. Still, the feeling remained. That little twist in my chest. That voice inside, asking why I had stayed silent for so long, but I pushed it down. I told myself I was imagining things. I told myself it was better not to start anything. Not when we were finally getting along again. Emily came downstairs, still, in her robe. She smiled and said, "Morning, Mom. I am starving," I smiled back. "Sit down. I will make you something." As I made breakfast, we talked about small things. The weather, her plans for the weekend, a recipe she wanted to try. It felt easy. It felt warm. And I thought, maybe I am just being too sensitive. Maybe Claire is wrong. We ate together. She scrolled through her phone while I sipped my tea. Then she said something that made my stomach twist. "By the way, Mom, I told my team at work about your fashion phase." She laughed lightly. "They thought it was kind of cute." I looked at her. "Fashion phase?" She nodded. "You know, back in the day, before I was born." I smiled politely, but inside something cracked a little. A phase? It was not a phase. It had been my life, my passion, my career. But I said nothing. I just nodded and cleared the dishes, because I wanted the peace to last. Because I did not want to ruin the moment. Later that day, I walked through the guest room where Emily had unpacked her things. Her clothes were everywhere. Designer labels, bold colors, modern cuts. I picked up one of her jackets and studied the seams. Strong stitching. Sharp design. It was good work, but not better than mine had been. And still, She did not know that. I tried to ignore the ache in my chest. I tried to smile through it. I told myself, she does not mean anything by it. She just does not understand. But the truth was beginning to whisper louder, and it was harder and harder to shut it out. That night, I sat on the couch with an old photo album. I flipped through the pages. Photos of runways, design boards, models wearing my work. Photos of a younger me, standing beside celebrities, smiling proudly. Emily walked by and looked over my shoulder. "Oh, wow," she said. "I did not know. You had all this." I nodded. It was a big part of my life. She picked up one photo. "You look so serious here." "I was," I said. "I had a deadline. We were dressing 5 singers for the same show." She blinked. "Wait. Real singers? Like famous?" "Yes," I said simply. She stared at me, confused. Then she put the photo down and walked away, saying, "Why did you never tell me about any of this?" I opened my mouth, but she was already gone, and I sat there, alone, wondering why I had stayed silent for so long. I tried to ignore the warning, signs. I tried to pretend it did not matter, but the truth was this: it did matter, and no matter how hard I tried, I could not ignore it forever. I watched Emily from across the living room. She was sitting on the floor with her laptop open, her legs crossed, her fingers moving fast on the keyboard. She looked so focused, so sure of herself. Her world was fast, loud, bright. Mine had once been that way too. But now, my world was quieter, still filled with color, but softer, deeper. She looked up and caught me staring. "What?" she asked, half smiling. I shook my head gently. "Nothing, just thinking." She turned back to her screen, but something about the way she looked at me stayed. It was not cruel. It was not mean. But it was the look someone gives to a person they think they already understand. As if I was only one thing, her mother. As if that was all I had ever been. She had no idea what it felt like to stand backstage at a Paris fashion show, your hands shaking as models lined up, in the designs you spent months creating. She had never seen the way I used to be. Bold, passionate, and daring. She only knew the woman who packed her lunches, the woman who sewed Halloween costumes, the woman who smiled and stayed quiet. And when she looked at me, I could tell that was all she saw. It hurt. In a way I could not quite explain, because it was not her fault. I had allowed this version of me to take over. I had hidden the other parts. I had let myself become invisible. Later that night, she came into the kitchen while I was cleaning up. "You do not have to do all that," she said. "I know," I replied, rinsing a plate. "I like the quiet." She stood beside me, drying a glass. "You have always liked quiet things," she said. "You are simple." The word stung. Simple. She did not say it to be cruel. She said it like a compliment. But I felt something tighten in my chest. I wanted to scream, "I am not simple. I am layered. I am deep. I have stories. I have a past." But instead, I just dried my hands. I looked at her, really looked. She had no idea who I was, not fully, and I realized something. It was not just the way she looked at me. It was the way I let her look at me. I had given up my past like an old coat I no longer wore. And now she could not see what used to shine inside me. I walked to the back room after she went to bed. I opened the trunk where I kept some of my oldest pieces, hand-drawn designs, bolts of fabric, photos, press clippings. I held one jacket close to me. It still smelled faintly of cedar and perfume. I whispered to myself, I remember who I was. And just like that, a quiet promise began to form in my heart. I will show her. One day, I will show her who I truly am. The next morning, I stood at the kitchen counter pouring coffee. Emily walked in, still wearing her sleep shirt and yawning. I watched her for a moment, and then I spoke. Emily, can I ask you something? She looked up from her phone. Sure, what is it? I took a breath. I wanted to choose my words carefully, but I also wanted to speak the truth. When you talk about my past, when you talk about my designs, or my career, do you ever wonder what it was really like? She frowned, caught off guard. What do you mean? I hesitated. Do you ever wonder who I was before I became your mother? She smiled awkwardly. Kind of, I guess. I just thought you stopped all that before I was born. I nodded. But have you ever wanted to know why I stopped? She shrugged. I figured you just wanted to be a mom. You always seemed happy with that. I looked down at the counter. I was happy. I still am. But it was not that simple. Emily leaned on the kitchen island, arms crossed. She looked at me like I had become a stranger in my own home. I do not understand, she said slowly. So, I asked her, as gently as I could, do you think I gave something up? For you? She blinked. Her face tightened slightly. That sounds like you regret having me. No, I said firmly. Never. I never regretted you. Not for a single moment. Then what are you saying? I paused again. Then I said, I am saying that I was someone before you were born, and when you laugh at my old clothes or call my work a phase, it makes me feel invisible. Her mouth opened slightly. I could see the shock in her eyes. I did not mean to hurt you, she said quietly. I know, I whispered, but I need you to understand. Designing was not a hobby. It was not a phase. It was my dream, and I was good at it. Silence filled the room. Emily looked away, her fingers fidgeting with her phone case. After a moment, she asked, Why did you stop? I looked at her. Finally, I saw the real question behind her eyes. I told her the truth. I stopped because I wanted to raise you. I did not want to miss your first steps, your first words. I gave the fashion world up because I chose you. But I never stopped missing it. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I never knew. You never told me. I nodded. That is true. But I am telling you now. Her eyes were softer, but I could still feel the distance between us. She was listening, but I did not know if she truly understood. Not yet. Still, I had asked the truth, and now it was out in the open. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. The silence in the house was thick, heavy. I thought about the years I had folded myself smaller, just to be easier to love. And I wondered how long I had been doing it without even noticing. But something had changed now. I had spoken the truth, and even though her answer was not what I wanted, I could no longer pretend. The days that followed felt different. The air seemed heavier. The words I had spoken hung between Emily and me, unspoken, waiting to be understood. I tried to carry on with my daily routine. The quiet mornings, the cups of tea, the simple meals. But every little moment felt charged with an energy I could not escape. That afternoon, I walked into the living room, where Emily was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. I stopped for a moment, watching her. She was the same, as always, absorbed in her own world. But now, everything about her felt like a reminder of what I had given up. A reminder of who I used to be. I had asked for the truth, but now I could not stop thinking about it. Was it enough? She had apologized, yes, but the apology felt like a thin veil, covering something deeper I could not see. I turned away and went to the kitchen, where I made myself a cup of tea, but I could not drink it. My mind was elsewhere. I found myself thinking about the old days. The runways, the late nights, the feeling of fabric sliding through my fingers as I worked. I remembered the rush of designing for people who understood what it meant to be seen, the excitement of unveiling a new collection, watching the faces of critics and celebrities light up. Those were the days I had left behind when I decided to become a mother. And yet, I could still taste the ambition on my tongue. I stood by the window, looking out at the garden, the soft glow of the setting sun painting the sky in shades of gold. What am I doing now? I asked myself that question over and over. I had given my life to her. I had made choices. But in doing so, I had lost pieces of myself. And now, Emily seemed to take it for granted. The sting of her words from earlier that week still burned in my chest. It was just a phase. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. I wanted to let it go, to move on, to forgive. But the feeling was stronger than I thought. I remembered when I first started designing. I had been so full of passion, so certain of who I was. Back then, there were no doubts. There was only the work, the next step, the next creation. Now, everything felt uncertain. Who was I now? Who had I become in the years I spent in the background? And yet, something inside me refused to be quiet. I had asked Emily the truth, but now I had to ask myself, what was my truth? I could not stop thinking about it. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling again. The quiet was overwhelming. It felt like the house was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I thought about the years of silence I had lived with, and I thought about the woman I used to be, the woman who believed in her own worth. Could I ever be her again? I closed my eyes, trying to silence the doubts. But they would not go away. They lingered in my thoughts like shadows, waiting for me to face them. And as the night deepened, I realized something. I was no longer willing to ignore the truth. I had to find a way back to myself, a way back to who I had once been. And no matter how long it took, I would. The rain began to fall again the next morning. The soft, rhythmic tapping against the windows seemed to echo the heaviness I felt inside. I sat in my favorite chair by the window, watching the world outside blur into shades of gray. The sky was low, heavy with clouds, and the air smelled of damp earth. It was the kind of morning that made everything feel slow, like time itself was holding its breath. I felt the weight of the days pressing on my shoulders. The conversations, the silences, the unspoken words. They were piling up inside me, one on top of the other, like stones that I could not shake free. It was strange, this pain. It was not sharp or sudden. It was quiet. A soft ache, always there, tucked beneath the surface. I thought about what had happened in the past few weeks. The confrontation with Emily, the words I had said, the words I wished I had said. I felt as though I had opened up a door to a part of myself that I had long kept closed, and now I could not close it again. Everywhere I looked, I saw reminders of what I had once been, old design sketches tucked away in drawers, a stack of magazines from fashion shows I had attended, photos from events I had once been a part of. They were all there, waiting for me. But they felt so far away, like a dream I could no longer reach. Reached for a photo album on the shelf. It was one of those old, faded albums with yellowed pages. I opened it slowly, running my fingers over the worn edges of the photos. There I was, younger, vibrant, standing next to models, photographers, celebrities. The woman I had been before. I traced the image with my finger. A woman with dreams, with purpose. A woman who was seen. And yet, now, it felt as though that woman had disappeared into the past. The quiet, faded version of myself that existed now seemed so much smaller, so much quieter. Tears pricked at the edges of my eyes. I blinked them away, not wanting to face it. But the pain, the quiet pain, would not let me escape it. I thought about Emily, about how I had tried so hard to be the mother she needed, the person she could rely on. I had sacrificed pieces of myself, not out of regret, but out of love. I had chosen her, every day. And yet somehow, it had never been enough. It was not that I regretted my choices. I had no regrets about being her mother, but the sacrifice had taken a toll. I wanted to be more than just her mother. I wanted to be seen again. I wanted to remember who I was. I closed the album and set it back on the shelf. The tears were still there, just beneath the surface, but I held them in. There was a quiet strength in me now, something I had not known I had. I had learned how to be invisible. I had learned how to hide my dreams, my fears, my desires. But I had also learned how to survive. And in that survival, there was power. I stood up from the chair and walked to the window. The rain had softened, leaving behind only a gentle mist. I looked out at the world. I realized something. The quiet pain was not a weakness. It was a reminder that I was still here, that I was still fighting. And though it hurt, I knew one thing for sure. I was not done yet. The days stretched on, each one feeling heavier than the last. I tried to push the thoughts away, to focus on the simple tasks of everyday life. Cooking, cleaning, organizing. But they kept coming back. The quiet pain. The questions I could not answer. The truth that still lingered between Emily and me. It was late one evening when I decided that I could not carry it any longer. I had to know. I walked into the living room where Emily was watching a show on TV, her feet up on the couch. She did not look up when I entered, absorbed in her screen. I stood there for a moment, watching her, feeling the weight of my decision in my chest. I had to ask her. I had to know if she truly understood. I cleared my throat softly, trying to steady my voice. "Emily, can we talk?" She turned to look at me, an eyebrow raised. "Sure. What's up?" I sat down across from her, taking a deep breath. "I've been thinking a lot about our conversation the other day, about what I said." She shifted on the couch, her attention now fully on me. "What about it?" I looked at her carefully, my heart pounding. "I need to ask you something," I said, my voice low but steady. "Do you understand why I said what I did? About the past? About who I used to be?" She hesitated, her fingers idly tapping the armrest. "I think so. You want me to understand that your career was more than just a phase, right?" She paused, her face unreadable. "But you gave it up for me." "Yes," I said, nodding slowly. "But it is more than that. It is about who I was, who I still am." I waited, but Emily said nothing. I could see the uncertainty in her eyes, the way she was processing my words, trying to understand what I was really saying. I leaned forward, feeling the need to make her understand. "I want you to see me, Emily," I said quietly. "Not just as your mother, but as a woman with her own dreams, her own story, a woman who worked hard, who built something, who was proud of what she did. I need you to understand that part of me." There was a long silence between us. I could feel the tension in the air, the way we were both holding our breath. Finally, Emily spoke. I never knew you felt this way. I did not want to burden you," I admitted. "I chose to focus on you. But I need you to know that I am still that woman. I am still me." She stared at me for a long time, her expression softening. "I guess I never really thought about it like that," she said. I just thought you were happy being the way you are now." I swallowed hard, my throat tight. "I am happy to be your mother, Emily. But I am also a person with my own dreams and my own identity. I want you to see me as more than just someone who is always there, always giving. I want you to understand that part of me too." She nodded. Slowly, the weight of my words sinking in. "Thank you for telling me," she said quietly. "I am sorry if I ever made you feel like you were invisible." I felt a tear slip down my cheek, but I quickly wiped it away. It was not a tear of sadness. It was a tear of relief. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had been heard. And though the road ahead was still uncertain, this moment, it felt like a step toward something more. Part 12. I finally understand. The days that followed felt different, not just because of the conversation with Emily, but because something inside me had shifted. It was like a weight had been lifted, a fog clearing from my mind. I had been afraid for so long, afraid that speaking my truth would push Emily away, that it would change the way she saw me. But after our talk, I realized something. It had not pushed her away. It had brought us closer. I spent the next few days reflecting on everything that had happened, on the things I had said, and the things I had left unsaid. I thought about the woman I used to be, the woman I had buried beneath the years of motherhood, the years of sacrifice. I had been hiding, pretending that I was content with just being her mother. But deep inside, I had always known that there was more to me than that. And now, Emily was beginning to see that too. One afternoon, as I sat on the porch, watching the sun begin to set, I realized that I finally understood something that had been eluding me for years. I had been so focused on being a good mother, on being everything Emily needed, that I had lost sight of who I was, who I had always been. I had given so much of myself, expecting nothing in return. And for so long, I thought that was enough. But now, I understood that it was okay to ask for more. It was okay to want to be seen, to want to be recognized for all that I had done, all that I had accomplished. The truth was, I had never stopped being the woman who designed, who dreamed, who worked with celebrities, who stood at the top of the fashion world. She had just been waiting for the right moment to step forward again. I had spent so many years hiding behind the title of mother, thinking that was all I could be. But now, I saw that I was more than that. I was a woman with a past, with a story, with a future still waiting to be written. The pain I had felt, the quiet ache that had lingered in my heart, was not just about Emily. It was about me, too. It was about the woman I had lost along the way. But in understanding this, I had also found a way to move forward. It was as if a door had opened, and I was finally stepping into the light. As I sat there, the cool evening air brushing against my skin, I felt a sense of peace. I had finally understood that it was not too late for me to reclaim my life. It was not too late to be seen. I smiled to myself, a quiet sense of pride filling me. It was a small smile, but it was enough. The days felt like they were moving faster now. The heavy weight of the past had begun to lift, replaced with a new sense of clarity. But there was still something I had to do. I had to walk away. It was not an easy decision, nor was it one I had come to lightly. But after everything, after all the years of living in the shadow of my own sacrifice, of giving so much of myself to Emily, to my family, I knew that I needed to step back. I could no longer stay in a place where I was not fully seen, not fully understood. I had spent too long trying to be everything for everyone, and in doing so, I had lost parts of myself. I could not ignore that any longer. I had a conversation with Emily, one that had been coming for some time. "I need some space, Emily," I said softly, my voice steady but full of emotion. "Not from you, but from everything. I need to find myself again, to remember who I was before all of this." She looked at me, her eyes wide with surprise, her mouth slightly open as though she were about to speak. But she said nothing. She simply nodded, and for the first time in a long time, I saw a flicker of understanding in her eyes. I could feel the weight of the moment between us, but I knew this was something I had to do. It was not just for me, but for her as well. She needed to see that I was more than just the mother who had always been there, the one who had given everything without question. She needed to understand that I was a person too. I had walked away from so many parts of myself over the years. Now, I needed to walk back into my own life. I packed a small bag, just a few clothes and personal things. I did not know where I would go or how long I would be gone. But I knew I could not stay in this house, in this life, any longer without doing this for myself. I kissed Emily on the cheek before I left, not saying much, but somehow feeling like we both understood. Closed the door quietly behind me and stepped into the cool evening air. I walked down the driveway slowly, breathing in the scent of the world outside. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Free to be myself, to find my own way, and to reclaim the woman I had been. I did not know what the future held, but in that moment, I knew that I had taken the first step toward something new, something that would bring me back to myself. As I walked, I felt the quiet strength growing inside me. It was not loud or demanding. It was steady and sure, like the earth beneath my feet. I was walking away from the past, but not from the woman I had been. I was walking toward her, back to the dreams and the passion that had once been mine, and with each step, I felt a little more like myself again. The days felt like they were moving faster now. The heavy weight of the past had begun to lift, replaced with a new sense of clarity. But there was still something I had to do. I had to walk away. It was not an easy decision, nor was it one I had come to lightly. But after everything, after all the years of living in the shadow of my own sacrifice, of giving so much of myself to Emily, to my family, I knew that I needed to step back. I could no longer stay in a place where I was not fully seen, not fully understood. I had spent too long trying to be everything for everyone, and in doing so, I had lost parts of myself. I could not ignore that any longer. I had a conversation with Emily, one that had been coming for some time. "I need some space, Emily," I said softly, my voice steady but full of emotion. "Not from you, but from everything. I need to find myself again, to remember who I was before all of this." She looked at me, her eyes wide with surprise, her mouth slightly open as though she were about to speak. But she said nothing. She simply nodded, and for the first time in a long time, I saw a flicker of understanding in her eyes. I could feel the weight of the moment between us. But I knew this was something I had to do. It was not just for me, but for her as well. She needed to see that I was more than just the mother who had always been there, the one who had given everything without question. She needed to understand that I was a person, too. I had walked away from so many parts of myself over the years. Now, I needed to walk back into my own life. I packed a small bag, just a few clothes and personal things. I did not know where I would go, or how long I would be gone. But I knew I could not stay in this house, in this life, any longer without doing this for myself. I kissed Emily on the cheek before I left, not saying much, but somehow feeling like we both understood. Closed the door quietly behind me and stepped into the cool evening air. I walked down the driveway slowly, breathing in the scent of the world outside. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Free to be myself, to find my own way, and to reclaim the woman I had been. I did not know what the future held, but in that moment, I knew that I had taken the first step toward something new, something that would bring me back to myself. As I walked, I felt the quiet strength growing inside me. It was not loud or demanding. It was steady and sure. Like the earth beneath my feet, I was walking away from the past, but not from the woman I had been. I was walking toward her, back to the dreams and the passion that had once been mine. And with each step, I felt a little more like myself again. I did not know where I was going when I left that night. The world seemed vast, unfamiliar, as though I were walking through a dream. The streets were quiet, the air cool against my skin. It was just me, and the empty space that had once been, filled with so many things. The pain, however, was still with me. It lingered like a shadow, quietly following me as I walked. Even though I had left the house, even though I had walked away from the life I had known, I could not escape it. I had expected that leaving would bring me some relief. I had hoped that walking away would somehow free me from the heaviness that had been building inside me for so long. But instead, the pain remained. It was not gone. Not yet. It was there, quietly gnawing at my insides. I found a small park a few blocks away, a place where I had come many years ago to think, to breathe, to feel at peace. I sat down on a bench under the trees, my thoughts racing. The city around me felt like a foreign place, as if I had stepped into a life that was no longer mine. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath, trying to find some peace in the stillness. But the pain was still there. It was the absence of all that I had left behind. My family, my home, my dreams. I thought that walking away would somehow make everything clearer, would make me feel lighter. But instead, I felt a deep sense of loss. I thought about Emily. I thought about the way her face had looked when I told her I needed space. I had not expected her to understand right away. I had known it would hurt her, that it would confuse her. But I had also known that I needed to do this. I pulled my knees up to my chest, wrapping my arms around them. The pain was not just about leaving. It was about the years of silence, the years of being unseen, of feeling as though my own identity had been swallowed by motherhood, by sacrifice. The tears came then, quietly at first, like a trickle of water from a dam that had been holding too much. I did not try to stop them. I let them come, one after another, as I sat there in the quiet park, alone with my thoughts. But even through the tears, I knew something. I knew that this pain, as deep as it was, would not last forever. It was a part of the journey, a necessary step toward healing. I would not run from it. I would not hide from it. I would face it, feel it, and allow it to pass through me. I had walked away from my past, but I knew that I had not left myself behind. I had taken the first step toward finding who I really was, and that was something that could never be taken away. The pain would stay with me for a while, but I would survive it. I would grow stronger because of it. And someday when the time was right, the pain would fade. I would find peace again. Until then, I would keep walking, one step at a time. The days blurred together in a haze of quiet reflection. I found myself thinking back to the time before everything had changed, before the weight of unspoken words and unmet expectations had settled so heavily on my shoulders. I missed it. The simpler time. The time when I knew who I was without question. When I was more than just the mother, the caretaker, the one who always gave. It had not been perfect, but it had been mine. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I longed for it again. I remembered the early days of my career, the excitement of designing for those famous names, the thrill of seeing my work come to life on the red carpet. I missed the late nights spent sketching designs, the feeling of creation, the rush of knowing I had made something beautiful, something that people admired. It had felt so natural then. I had been passionate, driven, unafraid. I had believed in myself, but now it all seemed so distant, like a memory trapped in time. It was hard to reconcile that confident woman with the person I had become. Someone who had quietly faded into the background. Someone who had become defined only by her role as a mother, a wife. I walked through the old neighborhood one afternoon, the streets lined with trees and houses that had seen better days. It was quiet, as if the world around me had stopped moving, just for a moment. I passed the cafe where I used to meet friends, the park where I had spent hours brainstorming ideas. Each place was filled with memories, memories that now felt like they belonged to someone else. I stopped in front of the small boutique I had once worked at, the one where I had spent hours perfecting designs, creating something out of nothing. I remembered how it had felt to see my creations on the shelves, how proud I had been, but now the windows were dark, the store closed for good. I took a deep breath, feeling a knot form in my chest. The past was gone. It could not be brought back, no matter how much I longed for it. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized something. I was not the same woman I had been. And that was okay. I had missed the past, yes. I had missed the woman who had designed, who had dreamed, who had lived with passion and purpose. But I was still here. I was still alive, still capable of finding my way back to that version of myself. It would take time, but I was not lost. I had walked away from the past, but that did not mean I had to forget it. It was part of who I was, and someday I would return to it. But first, I needed to find a way to build a new future. A future that honored both who I had been and who I was becoming. The past was not something I could erase, but I could use it, learn from it, and grow. And someday, I would find my way back to the woman I had been. The woman with dreams, with passion, with the courage to step into the unknown once more. Until then, I would keep walking forward. I did not expect to feel so alone. It had been days since I walked away from my home, from everything familiar. And as I sat in my small rented apartment, the silence around me was almost unbearable. The loneliness crept in like a slow tide, rising higher each day. I had told myself that I needed space, that I needed to find myself again. But I had not anticipated how deeply that space would cut into my heart. I missed my family. I missed Emily's laughter, the sound of my husband's voice in the kitchen. I missed the small comforts of home. But I also knew that this was necessary for me to grow, to heal. I could not ignore the truth that had been simmering beneath the surface for so long. Still, there were moments when the weight of everything seemed unbearable. In those moments, I found myself reaching for something, someone who might understand, someone who could offer a shoulder to lean on. That someone was Carla. Carla had been my friend for years, a constant presence in my life, even when I had been too absorbed in my own world to notice. She had always been there, a listening ear, a gentle voice of reason. When I called her that afternoon, I did not know what I expected, but I knew I needed to talk. "Margaret, it's been too long," she said when she answered, her voice warm and comforting. "I was wondering when you were going to reach out. I knew you'd be okay, but I also knew you'd need to talk." I laughed softly, the sound of her voice bringing a sense of relief. Carla had always known exactly what I needed to hear. "I don't even know where to start," I said, my voice wavering. "I feel like everything is falling apart." I walked away, but now it feels like I am drifting. I don't know who I am anymore. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then, in that calm, steady way she always had, Carla spoke. "Margaret, you've always known who you are. This is just a chapter, not the end of the story. You have always been more than what you think you are. And this journey, it's going to remind you of that." Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of years of friendship. I felt something shift inside me. It was as if a small light had been flicked on, a gentle warmth that pushed back the shadows of doubt. "Do you really think so?" I asked, my voice thick with emotion. "I know so," Carla replied firmly. "I know, the woman you are, the one who designed, the one who dared, the one who lived with a passion I could never match. She's still there, Margaret, and when you're ready, she'll come back." I closed my eyes, letting her words wash over me. I had needed to hear that I was not lost, that I had not disappeared. I had not given up my power. I had simply stepped back for a while to remember who I was. "I miss you," I said softly, my voice trembling. "I miss the woman I used to be. I don't even know how to find her again." Carla's response was simple, but filled with love. "I'll be here when you do. But you need to give yourself time, Margaret. You've been through a lot. Let the pieces fall into place, one step at a time." I nodded, even though she could not see me. It felt good to hear her voice, to feel like someone understood, like someone was holding space for me. "I'll be okay," I said quietly, though I was not entirely sure I believed it. "I just need to figure out what comes next." Carla was quiet for a moment, and then she said something that I would carry with me for a long time. "Take care of yourself, Margaret. You've spent so long taking care of everyone else. Now, it's time for you to take care of you." The conversation ended with a promise to myself and a promise to Carla that I would try. I did not have all the answers yet. I did not know where my path would lead. But in that moment, I realized that I did not have to walk it alone. I had friends who loved me, a history that could not be erased, and a future that still held endless possibilities. And for the first time, in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, I could find my way back to myself. The time had come. I had known it for a while, deep down, even though I had not wanted to admit it to myself. Saying goodbye was never easy. Not for me. I had spent years building a life, a family, a sense of belonging. To let go of all that, it felt like pulling apart something that had been woven so tightly together. But there it was, clear as day. The end of a chapter that could not be rewritten. And though I did not want it, I knew it was necessary. I stood in front of the house, my home, for the last time. It felt surreal, as if I were watching someone else's life unfold before me. The house was quiet, still. The windows, once full of light and laughter, were now dark and empty. The silence felt heavy. I had spent so many years here, years filled with love, yes, but also with sacrifice, compromise, and unspoken expectations. I had given everything, my time, my energy, my dreams, to this family, to this life, and somewhere along the way, I had lost myself. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Inside, it felt colder than I remembered, like the warmth had seeped out of the walls along with my heart. Emily was in her room, packing. She had known this day was coming, though she had tried to pretend otherwise. I could see the hurt in her eyes, the confusion, the questions she was too afraid to ask, and I understood. I had put her through so much, without realizing how deeply it had affected her. "Mom," she said softly when she saw me, her voice tight. I had not expected her to call me that. She had always been the one to call me by my first name, the one to keep a distance between us. But now, in this moment, it felt like a bridge had been built between us, one that had been missing for a long time. "I am sorry," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I never wanted to hurt you, but I cannot keep pretending that I am okay when I am not." She looked at me, her eyes full of unshed tears. "I do not understand, Mom. Why are you doing this?" "I need to find myself again, Emily," I said, my voice breaking. "I have given so much to everyone else, to this family. I lost myself somewhere along the way, and I need to rediscover who I am. I need to remember what makes me me." She was silent for a moment, and then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I do not want you to go." I could feel the weight of her words, and it tore at my heart. "I know, but this is something I have to do, for me, and I hope you will understand one day." We stood there, looking at each other, both of us unsure of what to do next. In that moment, it felt like everything I had worked so hard for, everything I had sacrificed, was slipping through my fingers. And yet, I knew that this was the only way forward. "I love you, Emily," I said, my voice steady, though my heart felt like it was breaking. "I always will." "I love you too," she whispered, and then with a final hug I said goodbye. Alone. The word echoed in my mind as I sat in the quiet of my small apartment, staring out the window at the city below. The lights twinkled like tiny stars, but they could not drown out the emptiness I felt inside. I had said goodbye to my family, to my old life, to the woman I once knew so well. And now, here I was, alone. The silence was both a comfort and a pain. There was no one to answer to, no one to please, no one to care for. But there was also no one to share the moments with, no one to laugh with, no one to hold when the world felt too big. I had spent so many years wrapped up in the lives of others that I had forgotten what it meant to just be with myself, to sit in silence and reflect, to listen to the thoughts that had been pushed aside for so long. I stood up and walked to the small kitchen, where a half-empty cup of coffee sat, growing, cold. The space felt unfamiliar, not because it was new, but because it was just mine. There was no clutter of family life, no mess from busy days. It was still, almost too still, and I was left to face my own reflection in the quiet. The apartment was small, nothing like the house I had once shared with my family. There was no room for secrets here, no hidden corners to retreat to. Every inch of it felt like a new beginning and an old ending, all at once. I thought about the past, the woman I had been. The woman who had dreamed, who had designed, who had not been afraid of who she was. I missed her, even though I knew she was still in me, somewhere, buried beneath the years of giving, of caring, of becoming what everyone needed me to be. I ran, my hand over the countertop, feeling the cool surface beneath my fingers. I was alone now, but I was not lost. I could still find my way back to who I was. And maybe, just maybe, I could find something more along the way. It was a strange feeling. This loneliness. It was not the same as the loneliness I had felt when I was surrounded by people. This one was quieter, more gentle, more accepting. It was the loneliness of someone who had chosen this path, who had decided to walk away from what was no longer right, in search of something truer. I stood there for a moment, letting the reality of my situation settle in. I was alone, yes, but I was not empty. I was not broken. I was still whole, still capable of finding my way, still deserving of the life I had once dreamed of. And though the road ahead felt uncertain, I knew I was stronger for having walked away from the past. I was ready to find myself again. Not the woman I had been, but the woman I was meant to be. I was alone, but I was not afraid. This was just the beginning. When I look in the mirror now, I do not see the woman I once was. I do not see the one who used to get lost in the day-to-day, the one who wore the roles of wife and mother like a uniform. I see someone different, someone who is still finding her way but is no longer afraid to walk alone. I am not the same woman who used to fill every moment with others' needs, always putting myself last. That woman is gone. And though I sometimes miss her, I know she cannot come back. She was a version of me, but she was not the whole of me. I think back to the woman I was before I got caught up in everyone else's expectations. The one who designed clothes for the boldest stars, who had dreams as big as the world itself. The woman who dared to live with passion, to create with purpose. I had forgotten her for so long, hidden her away behind the demands of family, behind the idea of what I should be. But now, in the quiet of my apartment, in the stillness of my new life, I feel her stirring again. The fire inside me has not gone out, though it has been dimmed. I realize now that it was never truly extinguished. It was only waiting for the right time to return, and that time is now. I have changed. I can feel it in my bones, in the way I move, in the way I think. I am not the same woman who walked away from her family, not the same woman who thought she was lost. I have grown in ways I did not expect. I have learned that I do not need to stay in the same place, in the same role, in the same life, just because it is familiar. I am stronger now. Stronger because I faced the hardest truths, because I dared to be alone when everyone around me was telling me not to be. Stronger because I found the courage to stand up for myself, to walk away from what was no longer serving me. But I am also different in quieter ways. I am gentler with myself. I do not rush to fill the silence anymore, to silence the doubts or the fears. I sit with them, listen to them, and understand them. They do not control me now. I have learned to trust myself again, to trust that the choices I make, though uncertain, are my own. And that is enough. I am not the same. But in that change, I am becoming something new, something stronger, something true. And for the first time in a long time, I am proud of that woman in the mirror. It was a small moment, almost imperceptible, yet it felt like a spark in the darkness, a glimmer of hope. I had not expected it, and certainly not so soon after everything that had happened. But there it was, a small light in the midst of all the uncertainty. It came on an ordinary morning, as I was sitting at the window, watching the city wake up. The sun had just risen, casting a soft golden glow over the streets, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of peace. It was quiet, almost too quiet, but it felt different now. Not lonely, not heavy, just calm. I made my coffee, as I always did, but today something was different. There was no rush, no anxiety over what was to come. I was not chasing anything. For the first time, I was simply being. I stood by the window, holding my cup in my hands, feeling the warmth seep into my fingers. It was a small thing, a small moment, but it filled me with something I had not felt in a long time, a sense of possibility. I remembered the woman I had been before, the one who designed, the one who created. She had not vanished entirely. She had only been waiting for me to rediscover her. I could not be certain of where the future would take me, but for the first time I was no longer afraid of it. I had walked away from everything I thought defined me, and now I was building something new, something mine, something I had control over. As I sipped my coffee, I thought of the lessons I had learned. That sometimes the smallest moments hold the biggest shifts. That change does not have to be dramatic to be meaningful. That there is light even in the darkest times if we are brave enough to look for it. I smiled to myself, a small, quiet smile. It was not a perfect moment, but it was enough. And for now, that was all I needed. There was a light inside me now, flickering gently but steadily. It was small, but it was mine, and it was growing brighter with each passing day. The morning light felt different now. It was not just the sun rising outside my window. It was the way I saw the world, the way I felt in it. For the first time in years, I did not wake up with a sense of dread or anxiety. I did not look ahead to the day and feel overwhelmed by the tasks or expectations that had once consumed me. Now, each day was an opportunity, a chance to begin again. It was strange, this feeling of starting over. I had spent so much of my life following the path laid out for me, by others, by society, by the roles I had taken on without question. But now, I was the one choosing. I was the one deciding what came next. I had no grand plans, no immediate goals. I was not in a rush. For once, I could take my time. I could breathe and simply exist without the pressure to be anything but myself. Started with small things. I rearranged the furniture in my apartment, just slightly, to create a new flow. I planted a small garden in the window, something I had always wanted to do, but had never had the time for. I went for walks in the morning, taking in the fresh air, listening to the birds, feeling the sun on my skin. Little things, but they added up to something bigger. They added up to the beginning of something new. I realized that I did not need to have it all figured out right away. The journey ahead would not be a straight line. It would twist and turn, sometimes gently, sometimes unexpectedly. But it would be mine, and that was enough. I found comfort in the simplicity of it all. I did not need the approval of others. I did not need to prove anything. I was not trying to fit into a mold or play a role anymore. I was simply being, and with each new day, with each small choice I made, I felt myself becoming more whole. Not perfect, but whole. Not because I had everything figured out, but because I was embracing the journey, the process of becoming. This was my new beginning. It was not dramatic. It was quiet. But it was real. I smiled, taking a deep breath as I stood by the window, watching the world wake up around me. I was not alone in this journey. I had myself, and that was enough. It started with a message, simple and brief. I had not heard from him in weeks, not since I walked away from everything that once defined us. And yet, there it was, his name, appearing on my phone screen. My heart skipped a beat, but I did not rush to open it. I hesitated, feeling the weight of the past between us. The message was as straightforward as it could be. I want to talk. I miss you. Can we meet? I stared at the words for a long time, my fingers hovering over the screen. I could feel the pull of everything we had once shared, the memories of laughter and love, of dreams built together. But I also remembered the hurt, the secrets, the betrayal that had led me to this place. I had walked away for a reason. I had made the hardest decision of my life to leave, to protect myself, to reclaim my power. And now, here he was, trying to come back. I could almost hear his voice, as though he were standing right in front of me, pleading for me to listen. But I had learned to be cautious, to guard my heart. The trust I once gave so freely had been shattered, and I was not sure I could rebuild it. Not with him. Not yet. I sat down, holding the phone in my hands, feeling the gravity of the decision. Could I face him again? Could I open that door, knowing the pain it might bring back? Or was this just another test? A test of how far I had come, a test of whether I had truly moved on. I had spent so many years living for others, for their needs, their wants, their expectations. But now, I had learned to live for myself. I had learned to make decisions based on what was best for me, not out of fear or guilt. I wanted to believe that he had changed. I wanted to believe that the past could be forgiven, that the wounds could heal. But I was no longer the same woman who would have taken him back without question. I had grown. I had learned to value my own worth, to put myself first. And yet, I still hesitated. I thought of the years we had shared, of the love we had once known. But I also thought of the quiet strength I had found in my own company, of the peace I had started to build. I did not want to risk losing that. I did not want to lose myself again. As I sat there, staring at the message, I felt a pang in my chest. Not of longing, but of uncertainty. Could I face the past and the man who had been part of it? Could I open that door again without losing what I had fought so hard to regain? I was not sure yet. But I knew one thing for certain. I was no longer afraid to make the choice. I was no longer afraid to say no if that was what I needed to do. When I think about it, I can hardly believe how much I have changed. The woman I was just a few months ago, unsure, broken, tangled in the past, feels like someone else entirely now. It is as though I have shed the skin of a person I no longer recognize, and in her place is someone stronger, someone clearer, someone who knows what she wants, what she deserves. I look back on those early days of uncertainty, when I was lost in the hurt, in the overwhelming flood of emotions. Back then, it felt like the world was closing in, like every decision was a weight I could not carry. But somehow, I made it through. Somehow, I found my way out of the darkness. It did not happen overnight. There were moments of fear, of doubt, when I wondered if I was making the right choices, when I questioned myself, when I second-guessed every step I took. But now, I understand that those moments were just part of the process, part of the journey. They were never a sign of weakness, only of growth. I am different now. And it is not just because I walked away from him, from the life we built together. It is not just because I found the courage to say no when everyone expected me to say yes. I am different because I have learned to trust myself again. I have learned to believe that I am enough, not because of what I do for others, but because of who I am. I think about the woman I was, always giving, always sacrificing, always bending to everyone else's needs. She was so eager to please, to prove that she was worthy of love. But now, I know that love, real love, does not come from pleasing others. It comes from accepting myself, flaws and all. I have become my own source of strength. I do not need validation from anyone. I do not need someone else to complete me. I am whole. I am enough. And as I face the possibility of him returning, of him wanting to come back into my life, I know I am ready to make the choice from a place of clarity, not fear. I do not need to let him in again if it does not feel right. I do not need to prove anything by accepting him back. I do not need to show him that I can forgive, that I can forget. I can simply choose what is best for me. And that is all that matters now. I am different now. And that difference is the greatest gift I could have given myself. There was a quiet moment, just before I made the decision, when I realized something profound. I had the power to choose. For so long, my choices were shaped by the expectations of others, by what was right for my family, by what I believed I was supposed to do. But now, I could choose for me. For the first time in a long time, I could put myself first. I sat in the soft light of the afternoon, feeling the weight of this new realization settle over me. It was not a decision I made lightly. It was not easy, but it was necessary. I had spent so many years being the person everyone else needed me to be, and now I needed to be the person I had always been meant to be. The message from him was still sitting on my phone. His words echoed in my mind, but they no longer had the same pull. I no longer felt the urgency, the need to reply out of a sense of obligation. I had no need to rush back into a relationship that had caused so much pain. I had no need to revisit the past if it meant sacrificing the peace I had finally found. I closed my eyes and thought about everything I had gone through, everything I had overcome. The hurt, the betrayal, the loneliness. They had been real, but they had not broken me. They had shaped me, yes, but they had not defined me. I was stronger than I had ever been before. And I knew now that I had the ability to choose the path forward, without fear, without doubt. So I chose myself. I chose my own peace, my own happiness, my own future. It was not about rejecting him. It was about accepting myself. I had come so far on this journey of self-discovery, of healing, of reclaiming my worth. I could not let anyone, not even him, take that away from me. I had learned to trust myself, to listen to my own voice above all others. And the voice inside me was clear. It was time to move on. It was time to choose myself. I opened my eyes and looked at the phone again. With steady hands, I deleted his message. Not out of anger, not out of resentment, but because I knew it was the right thing to do. It was time to let go. And in letting go, I was choosing my future. I smiled softly, not in celebration, but in quiet contentment. I had made my choice. I had chosen myself. And that was enough. It was a new day, not just because the sun had risen, but because I had risen too. I had spent so much time in the shadows of my past, in the quiet pain that lingered there. But today, I stepped into the light. Not because I was perfect, not because everything was resolved, but because I had survived, and that was enough. I stood by the window, watching the early morning light spill across the city. The world was waking up, as it always did, with new possibilities unfolding in every corner, and for the first time in a long time, I felt that I too was part of that unfolding. I was not stuck in the past. I was moving forward. There was a peaceful stillness in me now, a calm that had not been there before. I had no need to rush. I had no need to chase after anything that was not mine to have. I had made peace with the choices I had made, with the journey I had taken. And in that peace, I found something beautiful. Freedom. It was the freedom to be myself, without apology, without explanation. The freedom to walk away from the things that no longer served me, and to step into a future that was mine to create. The freedom to forgive myself for the mistakes I had made, and to let go of the guilt that had once weighed me down. I thought about all that I had been through, the heartache, the confusion, the moments of doubt. But I also thought about the strength I had discovered in myself, the courage to let go, the wisdom to choose what was best for me. I had not been broken. I had been shaped, molded into someone who understood her own worth. And today, I could smile, not because I had forgotten the past, but because I had survived it. I had lived through it, and I was stronger for it. I had made it through the darkest days, and now I was standing in the light. It was a new day, and it was mine. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of it all lift. Just a little. The world was waiting for me, but for now I was content. I had come this far, and that was enough. It is strange sometimes how healing works. At first, it feels like a slow, almost imperceptible change, like the slow turning of a page in a book you can hardly remember the beginning of. But then, one day, you realize that you have turned the page and everything has shifted. You are not the same person who started the story. I have been through so much. I have cried. I have felt lost. I have questioned myself in ways I never thought possible. But through all of that, something quietly beautiful has emerged. A deep sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the lessons learned, for the strength I discovered in the most unlikely of places, and for the resilience I never knew I had. It is easy to get caught up in the pain of the past, to feel like the things that hurt you will define you forever. But if there is one thing I have learned, it is this: the pain does not have to be the end. It can be the beginning of something new. I think of all the people I have met along the way, friends, family, even strangers who have helped me in ways they will never understand. I think of the quiet moments, the conversations that brought healing, the smiles that reminded me that I was not alone. I think of the way I learned to trust again. Not because I had forgotten the past, but because I had forgiven it. And so, I say thank you. Not just to the people who have been kind to me, but to the experiences, both good and bad, that have shaped who I am today. Thank you for the lessons, for the growth, for the moments of clarity and strength that I never thought I would find. I am not the same woman I was when I started this journey. I am someone different, someone stronger, someone who knows her worth. And I am grateful for that woman. I am grateful for all that she has learned, and for all that she will continue to discover. I stand here now, on the other side of everything that once held me back, and I feel peace. Not because everything is perfect, but because I have made peace with what has been and with what will be. And that peace is enough. So to everyone who has been part of my journey, to the ones who lifted me up, to the ones who challenged me, to the ones who walked away, I say thank you. I carry the lessons you taught me with me, and I am better for them. And to myself, I say thank you for choosing me, for finding strength in the darkest moments, for never giving up on the possibility of a new beginning. Thank you. There are days when it feels easier to forgive others than to forgive yourself. You can look at someone else, with their faults and mistakes, and understand why they acted the way they did. You can find compassion, offer understanding, and let go of the anger. But when it comes to yourself, the story is different. The blame, the regret, the what-ifs, they can haunt you for much longer. I carried that weight for so long, like a heavy stone in my chest. I blamed myself for the things I could not control, for the decisions I regretted, for the ways I felt I had failed. I blamed myself for not being enough. Not enough for him. Not enough for my family. Not enough for anyone. I thought that if I had done things differently, maybe the pain would not have been so great. Maybe the heartbreak would not have happened. But one day, as I sat alone, the quiet of the room wrapping around me like a soft blanket, I realized something. I had done the best I could with what I knew at the time. I had made choices based on love, based on trust, based on the hope that things would work out. And even when they did not, I had done the best I could. That is when it hit me. I had to forgive myself. The truth is, no one is perfect. We all make mistakes. We all hurt people. We all fail at times. But that does not mean we are failures. It does not mean we are unworthy of love, of peace, of second chances. I forgave myself for the times I had been too trusting, for the times I had put others' needs before my own, for the times I had ignored the red flags that were right in front of me. I forgave myself for staying in a place that no longer served me, for not walking away sooner, for not knowing my worth when I should have. It was a release, a quiet, gentle release that washed over me like a cleansing wave. I did not need to carry that burden anymore. I did not need to hold on to guilt and regret. I forgave myself for all the ways I thought I had failed, because I had not failed. I had learned, I had grown, and I was better because of it. The hardest part was learning to be kind to myself, to let go of the negative self-talk that had haunted me for so long. But as I sat there, with the weight of the past lifting just a little, I felt lighter. I felt freer. And in that moment, I made a promise to myself. I would no longer carry guilt. I would no longer apologize for my existence, for my choices, for who I was. I would forgive myself. And in doing so, I would free myself. I am not perfect, but I am worthy of peace. And that is enough. There is a quiet kind of freedom that comes when you finally let go of the past. It is not the kind of freedom you can measure or even fully explain. It is not a grand, dramatic moment. No fireworks or loud celebrations. It is the soft, gentle feeling of release. It is the peace that settles in your heart when you no longer feel weighed down by the mistakes, regrets, or the things that were never meant to be. I felt that freedom the first time I walked outside without the heaviness of everything behind me. It was an ordinary day, nothing special, but for the first time in so long, I felt like I could breathe fully. I could move without carrying the invisible weight that had once felt like it was crushing me. I was free. It was not about forgetting. It was not about pretending that the past did not matter. It was about accepting it, all of it, and making peace with it. The choices I made, the pain I endured, the relationships that ended, they were part of my story. But they no longer defined me. I could feel the freedom in the air as I took a deep breath, inhaling the fresh, crisp scent of the morning. I could feel it in the way my feet touched the ground, in the way my hands felt the wind. For the first time in a long time, I felt light. Not because everything was perfect, but because I had let go of the things that no longer served me. I was free. Free from the guilt that had haunted me. Free from the need to please everyone else. Free from the fear of the future and the weight of the past. I could walk through the world with my head held high, knowing that I had survived, and that I was stronger for it. It was a beautiful feeling. The kind of freedom that comes from within, when you finally realize that you are enough, just as you are. The kind of freedom that comes when you stop holding yourself back, when you stop waiting for permission to live your life. And as I stood there, with the world stretching out in front of me, I knew that anything was possible. I could go wherever I wanted, do whatever I wanted, because I had nothing holding me back. I was free. And that freedom, it was everything. There was a time when I felt lost, adrift in a sea of expectations, demands, and responsibilities. I was so caught up in what others needed me to be that I forgot who I truly was. I lost sight of the woman beneath the roles I played. The wife, the mother, the daughter, the friend. I lost touch with the parts of me that made me whole. But now, standing here, in this moment of reflection, I understand something I never did before. I know who I am. It is not a sudden, dramatic realization. It has come slowly, quietly, over time. In the stillness of my own heart, I began to hear the voice that had been drowned out for so long. The voice that said I was worthy. The voice that said I deserved love, peace, and happiness. Not because of what I gave to others, but because of who I was at my core. I spent so many years searching for approval, for validation from people who could never give me the acceptance I craved. I looked for worth in relationships that did not serve me, in people who did not see me for who I truly was. But the truth is, no one can give you the peace that comes from within. No one can define your worth but you. I think back to the times I tried so hard to fit into a mold that was never meant for me. I shaped myself to be the person others wanted me to be, thinking that if I could just get it right, if I could just be enough for everyone, I would find happiness. But happiness is not found in other people's approval. It is found in the quiet acceptance of yourself. It was only when I began to let go of the need to please others, to bend myself into shapes I did not belong in, that I started to rediscover who I really was. And what I found was beautiful. I found a woman who was strong, not because she never stumbled, but because she always got back up. I found a woman who had a big heart, not because she always gave to others, but because she learned to give to herself first. I found a woman who was worthy, not because of the roles she played or the titles she held, but because she was her own person, complete in her own right. It has been a journey to get here, to this moment of clarity and self-awareness. There were times when I felt broken, when I thought I would never heal from the hurt I carried. But those moments have passed, and what remains is a woman who knows her worth. I think back to the years I spent with him, with the man who once was my partner in life, in love, in everything. I remember the dreams we shared, the promises we made, the plans we thought would carry us into the future. But dreams do not always come true, and promises are sometimes broken. It is painful to accept, but it is part of the journey. I loved him, I truly did, and maybe that is why it hurt so much when things fell apart. But now, I see that I am not defined by that love, by that loss. I am defined by the way I have learned to love myself, the way I have learned to heal from the things that once tried to tear me apart. There were also times when I looked to my children for affirmation. As a mother, I always wanted to be the one they turned to, the one they could count on, the one who knew all the answers. I thought that my love for them would be enough to make everything right. But as they grew older, I realized something that was difficult to accept. They did not need me to be perfect. They needed me to be real. In the past, I would have seen their laughter at my old clothes as a personal failure, a reflection of how far I had fallen from the woman I once was. But now, I see it differently. I see it as a moment of growth, a chance to teach them that our worth is not tied to material things or appearances. I see it as a reminder that we are all more than the roles we play, more than the clothes we wear, more than the mistakes we make. I have learned to accept myself, flaws and all, and to stop apologizing for who I am. I have learned to stop hiding behind the expectations of others and to embrace my own truth. And in doing so, I have found freedom. Freedom to be imperfect. Freedom to be vulnerable. Freedom to be myself. It is not always easy. There are still moments when self-doubt creeps in, when I wonder if I am enough. But those moments are becoming fewer and farther between. Because now, I know who I am. I am a woman who has lived, who has loved, who has lost, who has found herself again. I am a woman who has discovered her strength in the most difficult of circumstances. I am a woman who has learned to trust herself, to honor her journey, and to embrace the life that is waiting for her. And that woman, she is more than enough. As I stand here, in this quiet moment, I feel a deep sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the lessons I have learned, for the strength I have discovered within myself, and for the journey that has brought me to this place. There was a time when I did not know if I would make it here. A time when I thought the pain would never end, when I wondered if I would ever feel whole again. But I did. I found my way through the darkness, not by avoiding it, but by walking through it. I faced my fears, my doubts, my regrets, and I survived. And now, I stand here, not as the woman I was, but as the woman I was always meant to be. And it is because of that journey, the pain, the heartbreak, the lessons learned, that I want to share my message with you. If you are listening to this, I want you to know that you are not alone. I want you to know that no matter how lost you may feel right now, there is a way forward. It may not be easy. It may not be quick, but it is possible. I want you to know that you are worthy. You are worthy of love, of happiness, of peace. You do not have to earn your worth. You do not have to prove yourself to anyone. You are enough, just as you are. You may have moments when you feel small, when you question your place in the world, when you wonder if you will ever find your way. I have been there. I know what it feels like to feel invisible, to feel like you are not seen, not heard, not valued. But I want you to remember this. Your worth is not determined by anyone else's opinion of you. It is not defined by the roles you play, the mistakes you make, or the things you do for others. It is defined by who you are, by your heart, by your soul. Do not let the opinions of others steal your peace. Do not let their expectations dictate your worth. You are not here to fit into anyone's idea of who you should be. You are here to be yourself, to live your truth, and to embrace the woman you are meant to become. I know that there will be times when you will doubt yourself. There will be times when you will feel like giving up, when the weight of the world seems too heavy to carry. But I want you to remember that even in those moments, you are strong. Even in the darkest of times, you have the strength to rise. And you will. You will rise. The pain you feel today will not last forever. It may feel like it will, but it won't. Time has a way of healing, of softening the edges of the wounds that once felt so sharp. And with time, you will see that what once broke you has made you stronger. It has shaped you into a person who can withstand the storms of life. So, when you are feeling lost or unsure, remember this. You are not defined by your circumstances. You are not defined by the opinions of others. You are not defined by the mistakes you have made. You are defined by the choices you make from this moment forward. I have learned that it is never too late to begin again. It is never too late to rediscover yourself, to heal, to grow. There is always room for change, for growth, for transformation. You are never too old, too broken, too far gone to begin the journey toward the person you are meant to be. So take a deep breath, my friend. You are here. You are alive. And you have everything you need to create the life you deserve. I want to leave you with one final thought. You are not alone on this journey. There are others walking this path with you, even if you cannot always see them. You are part of something bigger, something more beautiful than you may realize. And together, we will continue to rise. I have shared my story with you, not because I am special, but because I believe in the power of shared experiences. I believe that when we share our truths, we heal together. I hope that in some way, my journey has helped you find your own strength, your own peace, and your own path. And as I close this chapter of my story, I want you to know that I believe in you. I believe in your ability to overcome whatever challenges come your way. I believe in your capacity for growth, for healing, for love. And I believe that just like me, you will one day look back on this moment and realize how far you have come. You are enough, you are worthy, and you are loved. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, this is not the end of your story. It is only the beginning.